Hello and welcome to the Champions of Happy podcast, the podcast where I talk to my friends about what makes them happy, what makes them smile, and what brings them joy. Hi everyone, it's James here, the host of the Champions of Happy podcast. I'm so excited and so delighted to say this is the first birthday episode of the Champions of Happy. We are officially 1 year old today. Hooray! Woo! Party, cake, balloons, celebrations. Firstly, I want to say a massive thank you to all my guests who have been on the Champions of Happy podcast. Starting all the way back last year with my guest Jason, all the way to now to episode 26 with my friends Ben and Mikey. I'm so honoured and delighted that they came on the podcast to celebrate the first episode. They are podcasters in their own right with their podcast Once Upon a Scream, which has been going for 3 years, and their sister podcast Once Upon a Queen. They are podcast professionals and they are so lovely. They're my best friends in real life and I'm delighted that we've come this far. Thank you all for listening and being part of the Champions of Happy journey. I can't wait to see what the next year brings. More guests, more stories and more shared experiences. In this episode I talked to Ben and Mikey about their podcast, their experience in the podcast community and most of all their friendship. We do go on a bit because we talk a lot and we do play a game at the end. Little heads up, I do go through the questions very quickly, but in the answers category, we do break it down. So feel free to play along and let me know how you get on. Thank you so much and enjoy the first birthday episode of the Champions of Happy. Thanks, everyone. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Ben and Mikey. Hello.
Hello. Oh, you got Ben right as he took a massive gulp of tea.
I went for a sip of water to stop myself from introducing the podcast. Because we are guests this week. Don't overtalk. Don't take control. So I'm just going to sit here and say yes, James, to whatever you ask me.
Oh, interesting. I might use that in the future.
Yeah.
So obviously you're Ben and Mikey, my real life friends, but obviously you are the hosts of your own podcast, Once Upon a Scream, and the sister podcast, Once Upon a Queen. Hello.
Well, I'd like to call fake news on real life friends. That's not true.
We're not.
No, we're professional. It's a professional relationship.
We're
James.
colleagues, if anything. Yeah.
At best, podcast professional work.
Wow.
Really. No, we are your friends. It's always so nice to see you, and thank you for having us on.
Yeah.
No, thank you for joining me. And on a very special episode as well. This episode is the first birthday episode of the podcast.
Oh, congrats, James. That's wonderful.
Have you actually been going for a year?
So this episode will go live on the 14th of July, which will be the podcast's first birthday. So
That's wonderful.
Shush. Oh my gosh, where has this year gone? That's really freaked me out.
God, because
Crazy.
you started it during kind of lockdown initially it was to kind of buoy people up in lockdown, and now we're a year and we're still in lockdown. Whoa.
yeah. But I think it's nice because in all episodes we talk a little bit about COVID, and you just listening to it, you can hear the different stages where we are in the world. So I think it'll be a nice little time capsule.
Definitely.
Obviously we all kind of want to forget about COVID, but at least we'll remember.
No, I like the way that it's evolved. I like that it's broadened out to be kind of what makes people tick and what brings joy. And because initially, I remember when you told me about it, it was a way to buoy people up.
Be very different, yeah.
Yeah, whereas this, I love the way it's developed. And congratulations on a year. That's amazing.
Thank you. Just need to get some more guests now for the next year.
How are you gonna say? I can't believe it's taken you a year to ask us to come on, but we'll move away from that.
You guys are professional podcasters, and I was always a bit like, oh, I want them to be on it, but I don't want them to be on a
I feel like that's the first time anyone's described us as professional podcasters.
You know more than anyone. We are far from professional. I'd say not even semi-pro. I'd say, do you know what? I wouldn't even say amateur. I'd say winging it every week.
Hobbyists, perhaps.
Hot mess. That's another one I'd say.
Nice. But before we get into the podcast properly then, could you please explain, I imagine anyone listening to this is already a listener of yours anyway, but just in case, what is your podcast?
Oh, go on, Ben. I do it every week. You can do it this time.
Yeah, I know, but you do it because I can never remember.
Do it with some more joy.
Sorry,
go on,
yeah.
man.
Oh, for fuck's sake. This is why he does it. So I'm going to really try. We are a unofficial, I've been told by my lawyers to say, unofficial Disney and horror podcast. And we've been going for just over 3 years, would you believe?
It was our birthday recently, wasn't it? Yeah.
Far more, yeah. We're way more mature than James. Seriously. No, I actually can't believe we've been doing it for 3 years. That's absolutely nuts, me and Mikey have this ongoing joke where we say it's the longest and most stable relationship either of us have ever had. And I'm all here for it. We have an absolute blast together. Mikey came up with the idea 2018 in the summer, I think. And I think he literally...
Yeah.
Like, we text all the time. We're really good, obviously really good friends. But he texted me and he said, "Oh, how do you feel about doing a podcast?" And I just remember thinking, I've never really thought about it. Which is weird, really, because I was doing a lot of presenting at the time. And a lot of presenters try their podcasting stuff, don't they? They all think they can do it all. Anyway, yeah, so he texted me and he was like, "Well, I think we met in Costa, had a nice little cup of tea. I had a coffee,
Yeah.
Mikey had a tea. Well, with a little bit of milk."
We had our first business meeting.
We did,
in
yeah.
Costa.
It was wonderful, though.
It was fun though. But basically, I mean, I think I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while at that point, and I read that you need to have some sort of like hook. You need to have some sort of niche. I was like, what can that be? And I was just scrolling through my like fact file in my brain. I was like, what is a bizarre thing that we have? And then it kind of occurred to me that Ben and I will go to the cinema to watch horror films just as often as we'll go to watch Disney films. And you know, James, because you've listened, but we kind of thought we can't be the only people who have this polarized, you know, genre love. And so we thought we'd combine it into one podcast for Disney and horror. And it's amazing, like the amount of people who are like, "Oh, I thought I was alone in my Disney and horror love." And
it's like
come
so
along.
many people have been in the closet for so many years, thinking they're like really psychologically disturbed by being so obsessed with Disney and horror. And then we go, "It's fine, come in, come listen." I mean, chuck a little bit of drag queen magic in there, and that's pretty much our podcast.
We really are changing lives. It's
Do you know what I mean? Like during COVID, every time they said frontline, I was like nodding at the telly.
I'm a key worker.
I was like,
It's
yes,
Tesco early,
I
please.
know,
Yeah.
I know, thank you.
The format of your podcast has changed a little bit over the years. Originally, you tried to do a horror and a Disney film in one episode, and that's now you're focusing on one of each per episode. Why the change? Why the mix up?
We were a bit over eager. It was like, you know, coming out onto the gay scene for the first time and just being in like a candy store. We were like, we can do everything. We initially wanted to pair up Disney and horror films, which had similar themes, which you can do, by the way. It's a great exercise, but there's so much which connects. And that turned out to be more difficult from a time perspective more than anything, because we both had to watch two films. In fact, at the beginning, we were both watching two films and a shit review film at the same time. That's where we take a terrible horror film and review it, as in like absolute bottom of the barrel, like Chopping Mall or Killer Pinata or things like that. And we were trying to do three films in one. Yeah. And it was just too much. We were just too eager beavers. And so eventually we settled into this rhythm, as you described, which is, you know, 1 week horror, 1 week Disney. But usually with some cross-pollination throughout the episode. So a lot of our reference points for this is a bit like XYZ is usually from one of the two genres. So I feel like you get enough of both in each episode, but to kind of save our poor brains, we had to streamline it down a little bit. I don't know how many episodes we got in before we made that decision. Quite a while, though.
I can't really remember. But what I do remember is that Mikey's like, we're like yin and yang, right? Me and Mikey. And Mikey is so amazing at keeping things organized and on time and just brilliant. Whereas I'm like a creative fart. That just you need to open the window sometimes, you know. And Mikey used to be like, right, we can't go over 60 minutes. And for me to talk about a Disney film, a horror film, and a shitter that I probably picked and am obsessed with, it was a real challenge for both of us. So I think we decided to do ourselves a favor and calm it down a little bit. And actually, it's amazing because we've done that, and we still feel like we've got loads to jam in episodes.
Well, that's the thing, like.
But that's great. I mean, we're going to carry on for a long time, I hope.
There's loads of key films we haven't even done yet on both genres. We haven't done The Exorcist, for example. I don't think we've done original Beauty and the Beast yet. Like, there's a ton in there, which I feel like we've managed to save the longevity of the podcast by not picking up 3 films in one go. So I think it was
like we haven't done Cadet Kelly yet. Do you know what I mean? I can't believe we're almost 3 years old and we still haven't covered Cadet Kelly. Good Lord.
And you've got a Patreon now as well. So you're even bigger. You're expanding. You've got merch.
I'll tell you what, James. I was listening to that song by ABBA You know, the one that goes, money, 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 doo-doo. And I thought, we should be getting some money for this. We work hard. Podcasts are expensive. People don't know that. Podcasts cost money. You got to keep it going. Anyway, yeah. So we wanted to do other stuff. We wanted to sort of do films that we maybe wouldn't necessarily cover on the podcast. So like sequels in Disney or sequels in horror or sort of really random like TV shows or something. I think we kind of pick the very, very cult niche stuff, put that in the Patreon. And the thing is, if you are a Patreon to us, you're probably exactly like us. So you'll know exactly what this shit is. But it's really worked. And again, we weren't that familiar with, I mean, we knew about Patreon, but we'd never done it before. So it was really interesting. It was great to have some support. And we've, I just can't believe we've still got some people that have been doing it since day one.
I know.
And that's amazing. Like it. Oh God, I sound awful. But we really do have the best fans in the world. Oh my God,
That's nice though. You remember you are on the Champions of Happy. We are to celebrate here your happiness that you're giving others. Before we continue talking about the podcast, I want to go to our new segment of the podcast, Happy Moment. So, opening the doors to happy moments. Okay. Mikey, would you mind sharing a fact, a story, a interesting thing that makes you happy and might make others happy?
All right, well, so when you told me, I think I've slightly misinterpreted the brief, but I was listening to a podcast the other day about trying to find out what your values are, like what are the key things which kind of make you who you are. And it did this exercise, or it did a couple of exercises where you had to think about the moments where you've been happiest and then try and track why that was. So I'm going to tell you what I've answered for that because sure. And I'll tell you what it helped me learn about myself. But obviously, we all know each other from meeting in the London Gay Men's Chorus. And I realized when I was doing the exercise that so many of the moments where I felt the absolute happiest has been when we're on stage performing with the London Gay Men's Chorus. And it was a couple, like specifically I'm thinking about my first show, which was a Halloween one, but a ton of them, like when we were in Prague, like there's loads of examples where I can really picture, those moments in life where you are just taking in everything like a photograph and you really remember it super vividly. And I felt like joy in my chest, like a really great feeling. So my moment is those moments when we perform. But the interesting thing was trying to figure out, well, why is it that which I think about when I'm thinking about the happiest that I've been? And I kind of realized through this exercise that my values include achieving, surprise, surprise, achieving, feeling like you belong, like belonging and kind of being like with a kind of a group, and performing, but also kind of making an impact. So those four things are very important to everything that I do. And LGMC and specifically those performances are a rare example where all four of those things are intersecting. So achieving because you've worked for 6 months on some sort of show and now is the moment where you're actually getting to do it. So it's the culmination of a project. Belonging because you're with 200 people who are kind of sharing this experience with you and you feel really connected to them. Performing because you're getting to be creative and it's in front of people. And I forgot the last one. That was my last one. Making a change because in terms of making an impact, because LGMC often, we exist to break down or expand kind of the boundaries of what an LGBT choir can do for the community and pushing messages of tolerance and inclusion. So I think that's why it's my happiest memory. So I often think about that truly, like if I'm feeling down, I just let myself go to that photographic moment and think about being on stage for those moments and where all four of those things are working for me, which make me who I am. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the brief of what you wanted.
It does. No, absolutely. Mikey for president, one of the amazing answers. Do you have a particular moment you remember singing on stage?
It was, it's the very first show we did was the Halloween ball. And it remains the best show that I've done with the LGMC. It was incredible. It was so on brand, even for Once Upon a Scream. And it was my first show, so I was obviously very anxious and nervous and excited to get it done. I had people in the audience for the first time. We were in the Hackney Empire, so a really gorgeous theatre. And at the end of Act 1, we sang Bat Out of Hell, which, as you can imagine, for a tenor one was a real scream. It was just a really high-octane song. And it ended or it ended with a kind of refrain where you just like, ooh. So it was like a very kind of mystical, kind of slowly getting quieter and quieter, ooh. You just repeat this same melody over and over again. And as we were doing it, the curtain moved slowly down and started covering us. And I even talking about it gives me like chills because it was so amazing. It was like the curtain came down and I've never had more of a feeling of like being in an in-group of like us and them. Like we were behind the curtain. We've just delivered this first act. It was amazing. The audience was like, applause was rapturous behind the curtain. And as soon as it dipped, everyone just turned to each other and was grabbing each other and like, oh my God. I think it's probably how people who play sports feel when they win a game. Like it felt amazing. And so I often think about that. Even describing it, I'm getting the same feeling of like, it was so special. I think it's the happiest moment I've had in my life. Like it was just incredible. So yeah, that's my happy moment. Is that what we're calling it? Yeah.
That's a great happy moment. That's a really good happy moment. Ben, over to you. Can you share your happy moment, please?
Well, can I just clarify what the brief was? Like Mikey's. I mean, that was beautiful. That was like an A-level poem or something. But it was. But I thought it was something recent that's made you happy.
It can be.
Right?
It can be anything.
Yeah. Are you just saying that because Mikey got the brief wrong? Yeah.
I mean, I did caveat the whole thing by saying I think I misinterpreted the brief.
He did say that, which is why I'm bringing it up again for dramatic effect. I'm only making a point about it because my happy moment this week is the fucking Golden Girls coming on Disney Plus. And obviously I look very shallow now. But it genuinely made me so happy. And so many of our listeners so happy. So if that's not the answer you're looking for, James, that's the only answer I've got, to be honest.
So what? Let's dig a little deeper into that. Why do you love Golden Girls so much, Ben? Where's it all come from?
Oh, the table's been turned. You've been journaled yourself now, Ben.
Come on. I didn't approve this question, did I? do you know what? It is really funny, actually, because I talk on the podcast a lot about the shows that my mum would used to watch on #living TV if you're as old as me and remember that. She's only 32 and very single, by the way, so hit me up. And, you know, she used to watch things like Buffy and Charmed and one of the other one, and sort of like paranormal shows like Most Haunted and things like that. And I was like her lapdog. I would sit by her and just watch all this inappropriate stuff when I was like 6 years old. And one of them was the Golden Girls. And from a really young age, I just remember thinking, this is so, I mean, I wouldn't have used the word camp back then, but it is just dripping with campness. I wish I hadn't said dripping in relation to the Golden Girls, but you know what I mean. Dripping with campness. I just remember thinking these women are amazing. They're so funny. They have such a strong bond. They can make fun of each other. And it sort of, in the way gays do, it was like early shade. I was so like here for everything about it, and that the storylines was just so wholesome and nice and simple, and it just was one of those shows that filled me with such like joy. And as I grew into my teendom, and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, I used to dip into these shows as a form of escapism because I hated my life, basically, as a lot of gays do growing up. You know, you just want to escape it all. So falling into, I mean, particularly like supernatural shows, but the Golden Girls was one of those ones that I would rewatch, and it was always playing on cable and stuff. I would rewatch to get those kind of like endorphin boosts of happiness and to like laugh at these shady women that I would look up to and reminded me of all the women I knew in my life. Like, I mean, my grandma was like an amalgamation of all bloody four of them. She was just amazing. So it kind of, here, I'm getting deep now. Go
further. Push the boat.
All right. and I ain't pushing a boat up there.
I don't know where that came from. Push the boat. That's a new one.
Probably from the Golden Girls. It's a very dated reference, James. But it just filled me with such like warmth, to be quite honest. And I would escape into shows to avoid reality for years and years and years. Probably right up until end of uni in some ways, you know, like I'd go out and stuff, but I'd always come back to these kind of like shows from my childhood that my mum used to like, and it would just fill me with such glee. And I think the Golden Girls especially has a massive LGBTQ plus sort of dome over it. These women are gay icons, by definition, they kind of, in the way that, like Sex and the City, you have these caricatures that you can relate to, like I'm a Samantha, I'm a whatever, I'm a Carrie. You can do exactly the same thing for Golden Girls. And every group of gays has one of these bitches. And you know what? It's just watching it now, and Mikey knows I rewatch things a lot. Watching it now as a gay man just fills me with like such pleasure and such happiness, and I really look up to powerful, strong women, and these women have that. And it just fills me with sort of a really pleasant nostalgia. And I've got to be honest, I don't have a lot of that. So it's really nice. And now it's on Disney Plus. It's really interesting because we have a few people in our friendship group who love it as well. But it's really interesting this week with it going on Disney Plus, I've noticed so many of our listeners and people we follow are ecstatic that this is going up. And we've had like multiple messages saying, when are you going to do a Golden Girls spin-off podcast? And then I won't tell you what it was because I don't want anyone to steal it, but Sam sent me a name for it, and it was probably the best podcast name I've ever heard in my life. I'll tell you off camera. Maybe on
tell me off camera.
Yeah. But anyway, it just shows there's a huge like queer community out there that really looks at this show. And the Golden Girls, another point on it. The Golden Girls were making statements about things long before anyone else was. They have a really powerful AIDS episode where they make this massive statement about AIDS not being an evil person's disease in 1989 or something.
I think that was the first episode I watched, and I was like, what is this show?
To pick.
Yeah, didn't realise what I was doing.
Yeah, but they do this. And, in the pilot episode, they had a gay cook, and that was in 1985. They really do tackle some big things that we're still talking about today. Race is another one. They do some huge things about that, about the characters learning about certain things. And it was just so ahead of its time. And I think as queer people, we're ahead of our time as well, So watching it, it just fills me with such joy.
Nice. See, we got a deep answer in the end from that.
But I didn't want to give one. I just wanted to say, God, I can watch. I don't have to get the DVD in anymore. I can just go on Disney Plus and click. But yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your happy moments with me and the rest of the listeners. So back to you two.
Milking them out of us.
That's what I'm here for. Back to you two, Ben and Mikey. Ben and Mikey. When you first met, obviously you met via the London Gay Men's Chorus. That's how he met me. Did you instantly like each other?
Oh my God.
Mikey's really thinking about this one.
Yeah, he was like, no, he was a dick. I actually, I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what Mikey thought about me, but I do remember the first time he spoke to me, because we were at a rehearsal and he came up in his very like Mikey way and sort of introduced himself, like very like, not formally, but just really like, hi, I'm, and I was so like, not used to that because I'm not very good at that. I'm very like, a lot of people don't know this, but with meeting new people, I'm actually quite shy and I'm not that great. I'm a very confident person once I know someone. But Mikey was so confident, it made me feel so like there were a lot of people that helped with this, but Mikey was one of them who, on that first day, when you're surrounded by 200 gay men, probably more gay men than I've ever seen in my life up until that point. She's been places since. And he just came up and he instantly said, if there's ever anything you need, let me know. It's really great to see you here. I think he made some joke about some young faces or something, which I found lol. And it was just so nice. I just felt so at ease with it. But I do remember that.
You've never told me that. That's so nice to hear, especially because it's actually like a value of mine that, especially in chorus settings, but I try and do this in other places, I just make an effort to introduce myself to new people, because when I joined the chorus the season before, I had the same thing. I was like, crikey, this is a lot. Like, this is more gay people than I've ever seen in one place. I don't know anyone. And there was a guy in the chorus, Richard, who came up to me and was like, how are you doing? Have you sang in a choir before? And just started asking me questions. And I felt so at ease. And I appreciated it so much in that moment. I made a resolution to myself that I would always do that for new people when they joined. So I try to, as many people, because obviously with the intakes there's quite a lot that come, but I try with as many people as possible to go and just introduce myself, because I'm not an extrovert, so I don't enjoy doing it, but I think it's going to mean a lot, hopefully, for this person and put them at ease and get them to a point where they're going to start getting as much out of the chorus that I do quicker if they're feeling more at ease. So I'm really happy to hear you say that, because I try and do that as often as I can. And I try and do it in other settings as well, because it made massive impact on me. And I know in other situations when that's absent, it's hard. Like if no one brings you in, it's hard. Like as an introvert to break in. So I'm always about like trying to like bring people along. So you've never told me that before.
I think about it a lot, because I laugh about it now, because the way I picture it is you kind of swanning over like Heather Chandler to me.
Oh my God.
But in a really great way. Obviously, you were wonderful. But I just remember thinking,
you have an excellent singing voice. Who
I was like,
are
oh my
you?
God, what is she going to say to me? Who is this? I just didn't know. I didn't know anybody. So
it's funny. It's funny because my main memory, I don't remember that.
But did you like me though, Mikey? That's what he wanted to know.
Yeah, that was the question. No, I remember. Because you must have joined in January, February time, and then I had a birthday in March, which I invited you to. I invited basically like the entire chorus. It was a costume party. This is the best party I've ever hosted in my life, by the way. I had no idea at the time it would be, but it was like a villains and heroes costume party, and everyone went to town. We had about 100 guests, and everyone was in full-blown costumes. This has never happened to me since, by the way. Like, I've never had a party this successful. But I remember inviting you to that, and it was shortly after that we started hanging out properly, I think. Because I think because of that... Oh, no, I tell you what it was. I've been to your birthday the month before, Ben. You invited me to your birthday.
Yes, you came to my party. All I remember is our friend Matt was wearing a fruit hat. That's all I remember from that night.
Well, I don't remember that, but I know I didn't know you very well at that point. But then that's probably where our friendship began. And obviously, if I came to your birthday and invited you to mine, I think, James, I can answer the question and say I did like Ben when I met him, but I can't quite remember.
Sorry, that was a very pointed question. I feel like maybe I should have questioned that differently.
I was quite shy when I joined the chorus because I had no gay friends or anything. So it was a real moment for me. So those kind of like, those moments, and Mikey wasn't the only one that sort of really made an effort to come speak to me and like genuinely give a swear word about who I was. And I thought that was so nice. I'd never experienced that in my life. I work in the media industry. When people do that, it's usually fake AF. But actually, in this very moment, it was very real. So,
well, James, same question to you. What were your first impressions of us when you met us then at Chorus?
Well, I met Ben on Hornet originally.
Oh, of course,
the gay dating app.
God, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Just as I got serious with a boyfriend at the time, I messaged saying, I'd like you seem cool, let's still be friends, but I am now dating someone, so gonna get it off this app. And then I was so happening to be joining the chorus, and then I don't remember meeting you for the first time, Mikey, which is really frustrating.
Well, I do, because you joined the season after Ben, right? And Ben had told me, there's this guy, James, who's starting tonight, and we had chatted on Hornet, and I did the same thing to you. I went over to you, I was like, how you doing? Have you sang before? But just my usual, like, my Heather Chandler moment.
Heather Chandler moment. Clearly it had an impact on James.
But it was really hard, though, because when I first joined the chorus, that relationship actually, I got dumped like a week before, and the season was the love show, and so I was in a room full of the most gay men I've come across, like you, Ben, 200 gay men, all singing these bloody fucking love songs, and I'm like, not sure I really want to be here, but you, Ben, I remember really cool. You were like, yeah, Ben, you were like, no, stay. I can't remember what you said, something really nice and sweet. But yeah, and I'm now
are
we're
you sure
still
it wasn't Mikey? Are you sure? I'm trying to keep this character illusion going, James, on this podcast. Okay, can we not shatter it that I'm a nice person on this one?
So you two have been friends since, and now look at you with podcasts, with Once Upon a Scream, Once Upon a Queen. Ben, you actually got me into podcasts. I didn't listen to them really, but you told me about Nicole Byers' Why Won't You Date Me?
Oh!
And then that's my first ever podcast I've listened to properly. And then...
She is...
Oh, what a dream. What a treat.
The best. She 100% persuaded me to get into podcasts. And I well, her and Mikey in some ways, because when Mikey brought up the idea of us doing one, I was like... I had a lot of friends that listened to podcasts, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. You come across people, and they're very like, It really is a sort of like, I'm a podcast person or I'm not a podcast person. You really do have that. I have a lot of conversations with people who go to the gym and they're like, I would never listen to a podcast at the gym. But then I have other people who do nothing but. And it is interesting. So I thought, well, if I'm going to start a podcast, I should probably listen to some. And I loved Nicole Byer. I knew she did one, and I knew it was about dating. And I always think that's quite funny. And for anyone that doesn't know her, she's an American comedian, hugely successful. She's the host of Nailed It now. That's like her big mainstream thing. But she started off doing all these podcasts, but she has loads. She has absolutely loads. I think she has like 7 podcasts running at the same time now.
Yeah. And
one of them is just called Best Friends with her friend Sashir, I think she's called. And it's just them chatting. Honestly, it's nothing, but it is bloody hilarious. Honestly, it's brilliant. So once I realised that you could have a lot of fun with podcasting, and I'm a comedy writer, so I knew I could bring some of that into it, like she clearly does. I was like, yeah, this could actually really work. I was dead excited about it. But yeah, do you still listen to Nicole?
I do, yeah, on the regular. I remember being in the Two Brewers when Mikey told me you were going to do a podcast, and I remember you distinctly saying you're going to love 50% of it and you're going to hate 50% of it, because obviously I love Disney, but I'm a massive wimp and don't like being scared and don't like horror films. And I actually am quite proud. I actually like listening to your horror ones because I can live through it via you guys. The only one I've not listened to is Midsummer because it was just too much for me, and was the way you described some of the killings was horrible.
What's funny is and I've said this on the podcast before, but I used to avoid horror like the plague. I was so scared of horror films when I was younger. And I used to do the same. I'd have my friends describe the plots to me so I could, because I always thought the plots were fascinating, but I just didn't want to get scared. So getting it secondhand, and you're not the only person to say this, James. Like, a lot of people say, oh, it's the nearest they can get to horror because it's interesting without having to be scared. And so I feel like I'm paying it forward from what my friends used to do when I was a teenager. And I was like, tell me what happens in It. I can remember walking home and my friend Elizabeth telling me about It, and she was like, and then he turned into a massive spider, and I was like, he was a spider the entire time, like as a story rather than having to be scared. But we have a lot of that. We've got listeners who are either into both a lot or just into one, but find the other element interesting. I guess because we approach it in the same kind of way. Like there's similar kind of themes that we bring up, and we've got a perspective on it. But yeah, that's so funny. Like, it's not uncommon, I don't think, from our listeners to have that kind of relationship with horror.
Were your parents encouraging of watching scary stuff when you were younger? Because mine were dead against me watching anything scary.
Mine too, absolutely not. And they are not fans themselves. So my parents listen to our podcast and they do the same. They're like, oh, the horror stuff's really interesting, but they have no reference points at all for what we're talking about. They've never seen these films. And it was just, there was no horror in our house. It just wasn't. I don't think my parents like horror films. So I think they've probably softened a little bit now after, because sometimes I'll say, you can watch this one. Like, it's more of a, comedy or whatever. So they probably expanded.
Like Van Helsing.
Yeah. What's the one, is it Ready or Not? The one where they were in the house playing hide and seek.
Oh, yeah.
That's one I recommended to them recently because I'm like, you'd enjoy this, I think. But no, nothing in the house, which I know is very different to what you had, Ben, right? Like, ours was like a zero horror house.
Do you know what? I've got to be careful because I spoke to Mum this morning and said I was doing this. And obviously she knows you both. In fact, you've been on holiday with her. And she really liked it. She didn't know you did a podcast, James. And I told her you did this and what it was all about. And she is very into her well-being, and she's quite spiritual, and she's very into like finding your happiness and things like that. We have that in common. So she was really interested. So I've never seen her do this. She actually subscribed to your podcast this morning.
Yay!
Like, I mean, I helped. I was like, it's the purple button. And she said, oh, I'm definitely going to listen to this one then, because it will be an interview with you and Mikey, and it will be all about well-being. So I've got to kind of not say it was all Mum's fault.
But without her, you wouldn't have a podcast. So.
But look, I doubt she'd disagree with this, but she it's weird. She was a massive fan of horror films, but I would say more supernatural content. So she loved ghost stories. She loved the things like The Women in Black. She was always really interested in like true stories, like Almost Haunted and all that kind of stuff. And she did really like vampire films. Like, and those that listen to the podcast know that's a specialist area of mine, and it comes from her because she used to just love it. And so I think naturally, the same way with the TV shows I talked about earlier, I think I kind of adopted it. And I was one of those kids that was like, you know, when you're like told not to press the red button and you push the red button, like that was me all over. So my mum was like, don't watch this film. And she'd leave the VHS like on the dining room table. And so, you know, back then I had a little TV with a VHS player in my room. I'd watch it. It would scare the shit out of me. But I loved it. And so I've kind of enjoyed that rush. I do enjoy the horror rush. And I do enjoy being scared, even from a... Oh, smack the microphone. This happens all the time on our podcast. I do enjoy that rush. And it was, not to like get too deep, but I used to enjoy that rush because it used to, again... be an escapism thing for me. I used to enjoy being scared of something in a film rather than being scared of something in real life, like a bully, for example. So I actually kind of enjoyed that. It was like controlling your fear a little bit. And then as I've grown up, I've just sort of... It's weird. Mum's tolerance for horror has really gone down. She really likes... The last one we watched together was The Thing, when me and Mikey did the episode on it. Oh my God, I've just realised me and my mum are so Dorothy and Sophia from fucking Golden Girls. I'm sorry, but I had to put the F word in
Hang on,
there.
which one's which?
Anyway, no, Dorothy's the really tall, like, main one,
I'm
Bea
saying,
Arthur and...
who are you? I mean...
Oh, I'm not Estelle Getty, am I? Come on, I'm a 6'4". But what I'm saying is her tolerance has gone really down. She can't watch a lot of stuff now because it kind of keeps her awake at night, which I find quite interesting. I didn't know that was a thing as you got older. Whereas mine's definitely gone up. Like, there's truly nothing I can watch. And I even wrote my uni dissertation on, like, realism in horror films. So I love it.
Nice.
I love it.
And
she's if you come to our podcast, she's actually educated in horror films, so you'll learn something.
Well, hello.
Come, I don't have a Disney degree, but it's an honorary one.
Hello to Ben's mum, if you're listening. Hello.
Oh, Mum, I hope you don't think that was... But, I mean, you did let me watch some stuff, let's face it. All right? And it's fine, okay? It helped, actually. Love you.
I mean, she's the reason you've got a horror podcast, so if anything, thanks to your mum.
Yeah, and she's just found it, too.
Yeah.
Not really chick.
You're 3 years old now, your podcast. If you could go back in time and have a chat, a production meeting with yourselves just as you begin... how would you advise yourself? What wisdom would you pass on to your past selves?
Go on, Ben. I love how you put your hand up.
To answer your question, James, I would say I'd sit me and Mikey down. I'd hold both our hands, very dramatic, and I'd say, "Don't cover Drag Race Down Under." That's what I'd say. That's my answer, Mikey.
Okay, yeah, Mikey.
I think it's probably what we were talking about before, but like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Like, don't be too ambitious. Because the rhythm we've got to, which I think we had to get to through trial and error, is great for everyone. I think it's good for the listeners, it's good for us. I think that'd be my main thing. And then I'd also probably say, like, as a bit of a spoiler, I'm like, you have no idea how much this podcast is going to be quite therapeutic for you. Like, it's a tough, you know this, James, it's a tough gig. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it. We commit to doing episodes on Tuesdays. We've done hundreds of episodes at this point, and every single time it's like, right, got to do the episode. And by the end of it, I feel so uplifted. Like, it's great. I mean, we get to spend time with each other, Ben. Like, it's always such a good balm for the soul. So I think my other piece of advice would be, don't underestimate how positive this can be. Like, even outside of the creative thing you're releasing, like, it actually has a kind of a positive effect in the process of making it. So I think I'd say appreciate and treasure that would be my advice as well. How nice is that? That's very Champions of Happy, isn't it? Yeah.
That's very Champions of
That's
Happy.
lovely. And don't cover Drag Race Down Under, I think, is the double answer to that one. I get what you mean, though. Can I just add to that there are moments, because Mikey works very hard doing his job. I'm a freelance writer, so it's hit and miss, as most freelancers know. But like, my health's not always so great, and sometimes we have to, like, we get to these points where Mikey's really maybe tired from work or something, and I'm not in a great place or something, and we kind of talk to each other and go, this will actually make us feel better. And it just does. It's really weird. It's not like we're not ourselves. It's just we talk about something we really love. We're talking about it with someone you also love, and it just works. And honestly, I don't think there's one episode where we have not ended where either me or Mikey have gone, oh, I feel better now.
Yeah, definitely.
Or something like that. So it is really, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So I think that's, it's quite nice.
Can the same be said for when you covered The Black Cauldron and Dawn Till Dusk? Because I know you both have strong feelings on those films.
Yeah, but we also love bitching,
I
James.
can answer the from Dusk Till Dawn one.
Dusk Till Dawn.
That's one of the few times I've been angry on the podcast, because I think the listeners quite enjoyed that, actually, but I'm usually quite, Ben and I are fairly basic and quite easy to please. I think that's fair to say. But with this, I was livid. I felt like I felt offended that I had to watch this film, and the most colossal waste of my time, and that really showed in the episode. So I'm glad it exists as a, like you were saying about Champions of Happy, where it kind of like documents things. I'm like, oh, well, here's documenting me in rage. So that's interesting. But that might be the exception to the rule on the... I finished it feeling relieved that we've done the episode, and I never had to talk about it ever again until right now. So, although I'll let you talk about Black Cauldron, Ben.
It's not the best Disney's done, let's put it that way. But I really enjoy it. It's interesting because a lot of the times me and Mikey love the films we cover. That's why we cover them. But when we don't, I love to bitch, and I have so much fun bitching and moaning about things. So it is quite fun, and to pick these films apart like that is really fun. And it's interesting because we get messages, if we're like overly harsh or we're kind of like moany or bitchy, we get these kind of like S&M-y text messages come through that are a bit like, we really like it when you're angry. Like, do you want to like keep doing that? I was like, okay.
It's actually quite similar to, and this is where I guess it's different to your podcast, James, because there's two of us. I'd say 80% of the time we're very in sync, and then the 20% of the time when we're not, we are on the opposite end of things, which makes for really
so
interesting discussion. Yeah, it's like, it's great because you kind of expect that we're always going to, and the best is when we haven't talked to each other about it before, so we do it live and we have to defend our decisions, but it actually it's made me more skilled at arguing my points, like being able to articulate why I disagree with stuff. It's like debating society, except for that film you're either very passionate about or hate. So it's an interesting skill set which has come from it. But I always find it interesting, and like it's funny because it's the exception. Like most of the time we're very aligned on how we feel about stuff, and then when we're not, we couldn't be further apart.
I can't think of what films have we really disagreed.
Well, from Dusk Till Dawn is the biggest example, but it's
yes, of course, sorry. Apart from that one,
but it's main. To be honest, if it's not films, then it's plot devices or specific things. And it probably comes up more in the Once Upon a Queen podcast, which is, I don't know if we've said specifically, but that's like a spin-off Drag Race UK, Drag Race Down Under podcast. Often in that's more revealing of where we disagree on, runway outfits, whatever it might be. But that's always fun to discuss, I think.
I'd love to do a quick fire. You must get asked these questions all the time, so I want to try and get through them as quick as possible. Quick Disney horror questions. So I'll ask the question. Mikey, if you answer first, Ben, you follow up with your answer, and then I'll go to the next question. So, quick fire round.
Bring it up the rear as usual. Come on.
First question. Mikey, favourite Disney film?
Aladdin, original animation.
Little Mermaid.
Favourite horror film, Mikey?
Cabin in the Woods. No, I'm not sure. Come back to me.
Ben.
Oh, I'd say, oh God, this is hard. I'd probably say Scream 3.
Ooh.
I've got my real answer now. I'm out of panic mode. Jennifer's Body is actually my favourite horror film.
Oh, nice. Emo soundtrack.
Yes.
Mikey, if you were to bonk a Disney prince, which one would it be?
Aladdin. No hesitation.
Bonk a Disney prince? What, just one of them? This sucks. I don't like this question. Oh God, this is so hard. This is like...
Is it?
God, this is like Grindr in Clapham. I think Prince.
I was
Eric.
going to say
He's
Eric.
fucking
Of course,
hot,
it's
isn't he?
Eric
Yeah, I
for
feel
you,
like-
Ben.
Yeah, I
Obvious
know,
choice for
but
you.
like, come on, it's been a long time. I mean, any of them, to be honest. Sebastian the Crab at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mikey, I'm casting a remake of any horror film, and you're being cast as the main villain. Which villain would you want to be?
Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you.
I feel like, even though I'm not saying this because I would have a lot of prosthetics, let me just clarify, I'm not saying I look like this character, but I feel like I'd have a blast being Freddy just because of the campness. Like, that's like a pantomime waiting to happen. So I'm going to say Freddy with prosthetics because I don't look like him. Thank you very much.
Same question, Ben.
all right, this is niche as shit. Okay, but I'm gonna say it because we love niche on our podcast. It is Famke Janssen's role as the Grand High Witch in Hansel and Gretel.
Oh.
Because all she does is walk in and out of rooms with huge capes on and just say shady. It's like a drag queen role. I'd 100% do it, and she probably got paid a fortune to do it. So that's my answer. Of all the horror films we've ever covered, that is my answer. I think, or I think it could be quite fun to play Lucy in Dracula. I think that she's one of the first ones to get turned in Dracula because there's been a lot of adaptations of her, and I'd love to see like a real drag version of her because she's a hoe and I love it. So yeah, I think I'd go with either one of those two. Bit niche, bye.
Yay. Mikey, you're on stage and you've got to sing one Disney song. What Disney song do you sing?
Well, I'm going to do 2 back to back. I'll do Prince Ali 3. Prince Ali.
Oh my god, and I bet I could put money on the next one.
Prince Ali Jafar reprise and Poor Unfortunate Souls.
Yeah, oh what? Fucking hell. God,
Ben, you can have 3 as well, seeing as Mikey had 3.
Did he have 3?
He had 3.
God, what was... Oh, okay. 3. Okay, I'll go with Part of Your World, obviously. Poor Unfortunate Souls. And I'm going to say Out There from Hunchback of Notre Dame,
gorgeous.
because I can sing the shit out of that.
You can.
Oh, nice.
So, you know, she's done some auditions with that song. So, and I feel like I look like Quasimodo these days, so I feel like I can really relate, you know?
Mikey, you're the last girl standing in a horror film. What is your weapon of choice to fight off the killer?
Ooh. What would I go with? Any weapon of choice.
Any weapon.
A flamethrower. Good and dead. That's how I want my killer to be. Don't give me a little knife. Just the full-on flamethrower, Last of Us 2 style. Like, just kill them.
Ben, yourself?
Killer Pinata on DVD. Yeah, that would kill anyone.
And the last of our quickfire round. Mikey, what's your favourite thing about Ben?
Oh my god. It's like speed dating.
Not a PR answer, but true on. There are too many to list, but
Oh.
Ben has been for almost a decade my rock. Like, we have gotten through an awful lot of shit. So I think his patience, intelligence, caring, and ability to be just an absolute stellar friend all around.
Nice. Aww.
God, that's a bit much.
You shouldn't ask me the questions first, James, because now Ben has to follow that.
And then I have to always up it. Because I was going to say the Christmas tree pulls out every year. So I think it's glorious. And he does it all differently every year. Oh, I also like the pumpkins he does, because they're very creative.
My seasonal wares. Really.
Thing is, we are chalk and cheese in some ways, but I echo those sentiments entirely. Like, we support each other throughout, and you know, there are things going on all the time, and I think we both know that friendship comes first no matter what's happening. You know, like if we have some huge podcast deadline or huge whatever, it's scrapped because we have to look after each other first. And I think we help each other look after ourselves, which is quite a unique thing for two gay men who are single, you know?
Lovely.
No, but it is. I think we all need to sort of be kinder to each other and look after each other. And we've really
100%.
communicated well over the years and learned how to do that. Is that nice enough?
That's lovely. That was really nice. Well done. You boys have a fantastic lovely fan-based community that you've made via your podcast, the people who love horror and who love Disney. Just looking at the comments on your Instagram, and just you can see people really look to your podcast for a entertaining, fun, safe space. If any of your listeners are listening right now, would you like to say anything to them directly?
Join the Patreon.
I would say that the feeling is mutual. Like, it's a really special thing I feel like we've created, and we've had messages over the years, emails and people writing stuff in where and I'm not saying this to like it sounds overgrandizing it, but like people who've gone through breakups and have listened to the podcast and it's helped them in like the weeks after that time, or in lockdown, we were doing live shows and we were doing episode releases, and I think I just want to say it's mutual. Like, as much as it, the listeners appreciate the content, we appreciate the listeners, and also the being able to generate it and like having a platform and having an audience. I think it's a really lovely thing that we've got. It's really special, and I feel like I'm going to look at it very fondly for the rest of my life. Like, it's a really nice, positive community that is in countries all over the world. It's such a bizarre thing, but it's lovely. So that's what I'd say to them. Like, it's mutual.
Anything to add to that, Ben?
I said Patreon.
Oh, of course, yes.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I've made friends through this podcast. I never thought that would be a thing. Like, it's really interesting. Like, who you and like, it's no secret we support like the drag scene in London and things on our podcast. So we've met so many wonderful people, and like guests have become friends and listeners have become friends, and I just never thought you could get that. I don't know. I just never thought that response was there. It's a bit of a cliche, but you never really think anyone's listening, and suddenly you realize how many people are, and it's just lovely. I honestly think again, I don't want to sound too cheesy, but I think our lives would be very different if we hadn't had that meeting in Costa 3 years ago.
Even the other day, our friend Michael, I bumped into him going to see Heather's actually, and he was with his friend.
Chandler, were you on at 7:30?
And he was with his friend, and she was like, "Oh, how do you know each other?" And we were looking for a while, and I was like, "It's the podcast, isn't it?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's from the podcast." So even like you say, it's just amazing. Yeah, the other benefit of the podcast, which is huge, as an introvert, we have guests on, not every time like your episodes, James, but like we have guests fairly frequently, maybe once a month. And pre-pandemic, we would record these episodes in my flat, and so I would have to I've hosted more people at this flat than I ever would in my life, like strangers coming in. And it sounds cliche, but they come in strangers and they leave friends. Like, we've got so many people who have come and done these episodes. You stop that. But
this is why we never record on video, because you can see my reactions to things.
But I mean it though, like and James, you must have the same thing with yours. Like, you do this shared experience of recording with each other, and then you know more about people, and you leave, and then you've got like these people for the rest of your life. Like, the biggest example of that, I think, was the Disney Snatch game that we did, where so many people involved in that were either people that have been on the podcast or guests, and I was like, all of this is like, I wouldn't know any of these people if we hadn't done this thing, and my network is extended, and I feel like I know more people in London. Like, it has a beautiful effect on my life.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't have happened because I'm actually secretly quite introverted. So it's forced, as in they come round. So the best one ever was Miss Disney, or Misney as she is now. She turned up basically in full drag to the flat, and the entrance was just, and I was just thinking, oh my, this is so overwhelming.
Oh my God, it was
amazing,
proper like, all right, All Star 6, let's get sickening entrance.
Yeah.
Like, it was quite something. But you know what? Podcasts are about asking questions and learning things from different people and learning different perspectives. And that's why I actually think podcasts are so amazing to do and to listen to,
Definitely.
There's so many I listen to now because I love learning new things about people. So, which is why I really love your one, James, as well, because it's exactly that. I mean, yours is exactly that, bringing people on to talk about their lives and talk about what makes them happy. I mean, what could be better than that?
Oh, thank you. So, looking to the future.
Apart from Once Upon a Scream, obviously.
Obviously.
I'm under contract, James. It's not a personal thing.
Looking to the future, if I could wave a magic Disney wand and make anything happen for you guys for the podcast, what would you like to do with the podcast? How do you see it going forward in the future?
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because I think gays in London, we all know that life moves quickly and a lot happens, and it's hard enough doing the regular stuff we do, trying to fit it in. We have talked about for a long time doing some sort of like live event. I don't know what that would look like, whether it be a live show or even like a social or you know, Once Upon a Scream and Friends maybe, and bring some people back to perform. And I don't know. We wanted to do something like that for our 100th. Obviously, COVID got in the way of that. So that's still up in the air. Personally, I'm happy rocking with the ride we've got right now. But it would be so fun to get everyone in a room and just like have like a camp Disney riot.
I feel the same. Like I don't know what that live show form is going to take, but it's going to be performative. It's going to be camp. It's probably going to turn into like the most epic Disney and horror playlist. You know, I'd love us to do that. That would feel like a... Because like you said earlier, sometimes it's easy to forget that people are actually on the other end of it. And when we did our 100th episode Zoom, which you were there for, James, and you prepared that lovely video for us as well, which helped bring to life who's actually listening. I think after this year especially, we need this. Like, we need some sort of fun, but it'd be great to mark the podcast in that way, I think. So that, I agree, Ben. Like, that would be a good thing.
I mean, what I'll say is, all right, I know you like a little exclusive, James, on your podcast.
Go on, then.
What I'll say is, I've got a note folder on my phone, a Once Upon a Scream folder, and one of them is live showing. And if I get an idea, I just jot it down. And that exists. So... I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I know so many people that are struggling to get... I don't know when. I don't know. I really don't know. So many people are struggling to get things off the ground at the moment. What I will say is we'll do it when things are whatever back to normal is, you know. Because right now, it's a busy old time. We're getting episodes out, and that's that. But we're not going anywhere. No. So there you go. We're
well, fingers crossed. And we are coming to the end of the podcast. However, before we end, I know you two tend to enjoy a game. So I thought we might play a quick game. You're competing against each other. Because I know, Mikey, you like a bit of competition.
Look, Mikey wins, all right? There you go. Done. What a great game. Thanks for having us, James.
Right, so basically, it's a really simple game. I'm going to say a quote from a movie, and you're going to tell me if it's either a horror film or a Disney film. So you get 1 point if it's a horror or Disney, and you get an additional point if you can name the film.
Oh, God. You realise you're really showing us up, James, if we get 0 on this. Like...
Number 1, listen to them. Children of the Night. What music they make. Is that a horror film or a Disney film? And you get a bonus point if you can name the film. Number 2, I had to slit a few throats, but I got it. Is that Disney or horror? So number 3, I'm your number 1 fan.
Can I just say, we're better at dates?
I was just about to say, we get extra points for the year.
No. Because I did not research that.
I've been putting them in, but yeah, okay.
Have you? God, he's such a nerd.
So number 4, a boy's best friend is his mother. For the listeners, you can't see this, but they look really serious right now. Number 5, you can't crush a soul here. That's what life on Earth is for. You can't crush a soul here. That's what life on Earth is for.
These are good games, James. Do you want to
license this to us?
Write our ones.
Start working for BuzzFeed. Number
us.
Number 6. That is exactly how your father looked before he died. This is exactly how your father looked before he died.
That is so morbid. What if that is a Disney film or a horror film? I'd buy it.
Number 7. There'll be food and drinks and ghosts and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited. Number 8. Fear always works.
Oh, come on. That was 3 words.
Is it Disney?
Fear always...
Is it Disney or horror? Fear always works.
This is hard.
Yeah.
Number 9. Number 9. I find delight in the gruesome and grim. And the last question, and I think, Ben, you'll get this one. Poison them, drown them, bash them on the head. Got any chloroform? Do we need any repeats?
If you really listen to my track, Mikey, you've got a clue. Coming from the garden. Just remember who helped you.
Do you need any repeating?
No, I hate tests, especially surprise ones. So let's just get on with it, shall we?
So number one.
Actually, yeah. What was one again? Actually, we're going to go through it, aren't we?
I'll give you a sec. I'll give you a chance. So number one was Listen to Them, Children of the Night, What Music They Make. The film.
Okay.
I'll give you a clue. The film has been mentioned by one of you on this episode. Okay, we'll go for the answers then. So.
Oh my god, are you going to say these are all films we've covered?
I don't think that some are. I don't think that all of them are though. So.
Okay. Well, I feel better now.
So number one.
Yeah, all right, let's go.
What do we think number one is? Listen to Them, Children of the Night, What Music They Make, horror or Disney?
Horror.
I think it's horror,
It is horror.
and I think it's Dusk Till Dawn.
Mikey, do you
I
have a
also-
guess for the film?
Yeah, I put Dusk Till Dawn as well.
It's actually from Dracula, 1931.
Oh.
Whoa, I didn't talk about that Dracula. I talked about
Dracula
Bram
before that.
Stoker's Dracula.
So you both get a point for guessing that it was horror. Please keep your own scores because I'm not doing that. So number two, I had
Please
to
lie about your own schools.
number two, I had to slit a few throats, but I got it
Disney's Aladdin, 1992.
correct.
Can I get an extra point for 1992?
Don't get an extra point for 1992. Number three, I'm your number one fan.
It's a horror film and it's Misery.
It is correct.
I didn't get Aladdin for that one. I just
Did
knew
you
it was
not?
Disney.
Ah.
It's
Mikey's better
talking
at
about
Aladdin than me.
the pendant that Jafar uses to open the Cave of Wonders.
I just think that's quite an aggressive statement for a Disney film.
Well, I mean, you can see our Aladdin episode for lots of controversial things which were said in that film at the time.
Oh yeah, that.
Number four, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Is this Psycho?
I guess Psycho as well.
It was Psycho.
Hey.
So it's horror, Psycho.
Okay, so that's a Disney film.
Number five, you can't crush souls here. That's what life on Earth is for.
Is it Soul?
Soul.
It is Soul.
Right.
I thought you might have thought that was
God.
the one with the guy with the pins in his face.
Hellraiser.
Yeah, I thought that could have been. I thought I might have thrown you off that way, but you're too good.
Hey, do you know what? It was. This was crafty, James.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Thank you.
These were some nasty statements.
Number six, this is exactly how your father looked before he died.
I think it's Disney, but I have no idea where it's
I've
from.
put horror, so one of us is right.
It's Disney.
Ooh.
Yeah, it sounds like like Mulan or something, but there was no dead father.
Oh,
in
it's
that.
Scar.
It's Scar.
Of course.
Oh,
Number seven, there'll be food and drinks and ghosts and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
I put Disney.
I put Disney and I put Haunted Mansion.
It's horror, House on a Haunted Hill.
Oh.
Oh, see, I hate that film, so that's why I did it. So I'm going to give myself a point. No, I'm not.
Cheating.
If you listen to the podcast, you know I do not care about competition. So if I lose this, look at Mikey. He's sweating. He's
I'm trying to
dying
calculate
for a win.
how many ones Ben got correct to try and see if I'm ahead or not.
Well, I think I'm probably one behind you because of Aladdin.
Yeah, but I didn't get that last one right about the
God,
horror, so I think we're neck and neck, actually.
James, I cannot stress how I do not care. Like, I'm enjoying the trivia. I love trivia, but the game part of it. Go on, right? 8. Are we on 8?
You're on number 8. Fear always
Right.
works.
Horror?
Fear.
Yeah, I put horror.
It's Disney.
Oh.
Zootopia.
Who said that?
The little sheep.
Oh.
And you've covered that one as well.
That's an all animal.
so-
Yeah, it's an all animal Disney
covered
film.
the
though.
film.
We don't- Yeah, but it doesn't mean we like it.
I like it.
Yeah, whatever.
Moving on to number 9. I delight in the gruesome and grim.
I've said Disney.
Yeah, I said Disney.
It is Disney. Any idea what the film is?
Now I've got Disney. Let me have a real think about this. I haven't written it down. I delight in the gruesome.
I can almost feel like I can almost see it, but I'm not sure.
It feels like an Ursula statement, but I don't think it is because I know her statement's very.
I'm thinking of like the Mad Madam Mim, maybe. Like Sword in the Stone
Yeah.
or something.
Is it Sword in the Stone?
That is the answer, yeah.
Oh my
Can we have a point each?
I
As we
feel
work
like you
together.
work together.
Get on. No! Absolutely not. Ben, you don't get an extra point. I'm getting it.
No, I said, can we both have a point?
No! I got it!
Look, are you listening? Are you listening to this shriekness
Listeners,
in his voice?
rewind 15 seconds and you'll hear me getting that and not Ben. I'm thinking of like the Mad Madam Mim, maybe. Like Sword in the Stone or something.
Is it Sword in the Stone?
That is the answer, yeah.
Oh. And so it's on the tape for the record.
Oh, okay. I mean, and if you rewind 20 seconds, you'll hear me go, I don't give a shit. James, I cannot stress how I do not care.
I'm gonna go and leave you two at it. Mikey, I'll give you that.
Come on
Ben.
then, last
Sorry,
one.
I feel like if we give you that, Ben might.
Even though,
slit
let's
my
all
throat.
remember, I gave him the clue outside the window for this one. Does he remember that? Does he? F-U-C-K. It's 101 Dalmatians, James, and that is a horror film. No, it's a Disney film.
Yeah, Ben, you are correct. Poison them, drown them, bash them in the head was Cruella, but also from the film 101 Dalmatians.
Oh, that was fun.
So, boys, can you please total your scores?
I got 11.
Oh, I didn't need to go so hard on the old point defense because I got 13.
Mikey's the winner! Yay!
And do you know what? That'll absolutely make his day.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that, boys. Really testing your horror and Disney knowledge. Well done.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was great.
So, we have come to the end of the podcast now, unfortunately. We will be saying goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me on the Champions of Happy. It's been an absolute pleasure, an honour to have podcast professionals as yourselves on my meek and tiny
Please.
podcast.
James, you need to stop calling us that. We truly are not.
Oh, thank you for having us on, though. What a delight this has been.
Yeah, it's been jokes. I loved it.
No, thank you. I imagine everyone knows already, but would you like to share your socials?
Okay, right. If you would like to check us out, you're more than welcome. We're at Upon a Scream on Instagram. And that's pretty much it. I don't update anything else, so don't waste your time. We are Once Upon a Scream pretty much wherever you pod. But, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, usual shebang. We're on there. And if you go to our Instagram, there's a link to all of those. So you can give us a listen. We are bi-weekly now, so it's every other Tuesday. But if you've never heard us chat before, there is certainly a back catalogue for you to go and have a listen to. We also have a Patreon, as I so subtly joked throughout this recording. Bonus episodes, different series, podcast merchandise, all the usual stuff. It's all outlined very clearly on there. And that's patreon.com/Upon a Scream.
Thank you again for joining me on the first birthday episode of the Champions of Happy. It's been I couldn't have asked. Couldn't have asked for better guests for it, really. So thank you for jumping on board. And I'll see you at the pub later. Mikey, you're more than welcome to come if you want to come. But otherwise, we'll say goodbye. Goodbye.
Oh, bye. You've made me feel very happy, you champion. Bye.